Welcome to Registered, the podcast of the Catholic Register, where we'll be taking a look beyond the headlines of the stories that graced all of our platforms this past week. I'm Mickey Conlon, editor of the Register, alongside associate editor Quinton Amundson and reporter Luke Mandato. This week's episode is brought to you by Our Lady Seat of Wisdom College. At Our Lady Seat of Wisdom, Catholic higher education goes beyond the classroom. Through bachelor degree programs, students are formed intellectually, spiritually, and personally. Visit seatofwisdom.ca to learn more. Well, this week, the long promised letter from our very own Cardinal Frank Leo to Prime Minister Mark Carney and Toronto area MPs dropped. That would be Cardinal Leo's plea to Carney and other MPs to choose life when a vote comes on Bill C-218, which is making its way through Parliament right now. That bill, of course, is Tamara Jansen's private member's bill that would restrict the expansion of medically assisted dying to those individuals solely living with a mental illness. Now, I take a look at the three of us here. I'm pretty sure we're all on the same page. Like, what's the issue here? Who in their right mind would vote for medically assisted death for such a vulnerable segment of our brothers and sisters? Strange times we live in, though, when even the majority of Catholics support some form of MAiD. The Cardinal is quite clear, and I quote him from his letter: "Our Catholic faith opposes the taking of any life, and it is with great disappointment and anguish that we have seen our country expand MAiD at a rapid and alarming rate." Both of you have been covering this topic quite closely over the years, and after little blowback beyond church and pro-life groups against the expansion of MAiD, in the general population, there does seem to be some change of thought when it comes to this most recent attempt to expand MAiD. It's already been pushed back a few times so Parliament can do more study. This time it's now March 17th, 2027. So I ask you, do you think Cardinal Leo's request of Carney and his MPs will bring our parliamentarians to either push it back further or hopefully outright cancel the expansion of the MAiD regime?
I think it could, maybe contribute to the ongoing phenomenon that's happening where it seems that, expanding MAiD to individuals solely with a mental illness is like a bridge too far, even for Canadians who are supportive of MAiD, track one and track two. You look at the polling over the past few years, very strong majority say, no, we should not be moving this any further. We should abandon this scheme on March 17th, 2027 to go forward. And we're hearing it with the testimony coming forth on the Parliament Committee, the joint parliamentary committee with the Senate and the House of Commons. We're hearing more physicians raise the alarm about that. We are also seeing other countries and international bodies increase their pushback and say that Canada needs to correct its wayward ways. And I'm very encouraged that so many people in my life have been sharing Cardinal Leo's letter over the past few days on social media. And of course, I'm based in Western Canada, so a lot of friends in Alberta and Saskatchewan are sharing what the Cardinal has to say. And I think his message about how the expansion of MAiD is really undermining our culture of compassion is really resonating strongly right now. And I think it will contribute to a difference being made.
Yeah, Quentin, I think you hit the nail on the head with that line about it undermining really what we're known for here in Canada, that culture of compassion. I too have been seeing it making the rounds online. I've had some family members and some friends send it to me and make sure that I had seen it, of course. But I think the biggest thing is just sort of how the rise has been so steep lately. When I joined on the Register a few years ago, we were, of course, talking about MAiD. MAiD was still prevalent. But even just in these most recent years, it feels like we just keep going from one slippery slope to the next. And I mean, in 10 years, it's gone from terminal cases to non-terminal physical conditions, and now, potentially mental illness alone, right? So it makes you wonder what that next slippery slope is. And I think Cardinal Leo's intervention could help build some momentum, like Mickey said, whether it be to delaying or altogether, pushing this back and having, people in charge rethink this.
Well, it's amazing just how we've blown through all these supposed safeguards that when this was first introduced in 2016, that, well, it was for people who, their death was imminent. And we're not going beyond that. And all these safeguards came into play. And then, of course, the courts got involved, and mostly in Quebec, it seems, and where, of course, Quebec is where, the people are a lot more for MAiD than they are in the rest of the country. Not to say that the rest of the country is that far behind. And that brings me to the point about people who've just accepted this all along, every little incremental step. And then I guess, the old give them an inch, they take a mile. Well, they've gone to that last mile, and people are saying, hey, hang on, what's going on here? Because we also all know that there's been talk about expanding it to mature minors. Now, what's a mature minor? Some 13-year-old that is a genius, but they're such a genius that they want to kill themselves? It's incredible. So we'll see how it's going here. And we have to give a shout out to I say there, beyond the church and pro-life groups, no one's really been pushing back on this, but groups like the Euthanasia Prevention Coalition, they've been at the forefront of it. Alex Schedenberg and his group, Nicole Scheidel and the Canadian Physicians for Life, they have as well. It's not been something that they've allowed to be swept under the rug. So, a shout out to them.
And I think, Mickey, somebody like Amanda Ockman, a figure like her has been so powerful and starting to really get those stories out there about, individuals, who have been victimized by MAiD, and also people who have found a lot of fulfillment, even though in our culture, where it's so easy to discard people who are suffering, she's been able to really render some beautiful accounts of people who have really chosen a dignified way of just wanting to embrace life, even though the later stages of their time on earth has been beset with so many medical difficulties. And I would recommend, the Archdiocese of Edmonton has been posting some presentations that she's been doing over the past week in parishes. I would highly, encourage all of us to tune in to listen to what she has to say. It's very powerful, the stories that she is telling right now. And we have to really appreciate and get behind ministries like that are fighting so hard for that culture of life. And maybe kind of a plug for ourselves. A couple of years ago, we did a project called Lives Lived for Life. I think this is one of the most fulfilling endeavors that I've been involved with. I'm sure, Mickey, you've been involved with, and Luke, that you've been involved with the Register. So 12 accounts of brave people that are trying to stand for life in our country. Check it out. So yeah, there's that self-promotion in this segment, but I think it's a project worth seeking out.
Yeah, it's really eye-opening when you put it that way. It's so easy, Mickey. You mentioned that, I think that a lot of the general public are just really tired of fighting. Maybe they're worn out for how long this has been going on, and seeing all of those checkpoints and safeguards kind of be passed over. But to that point, there are people like Alex Schadenberg and Amanda Ockman who, refuse every day to become tired. Even if they are tired, they're fighting through that. And it's so easy when, you're not directly affected maybe by something like MAiD in your life or with a family member, to kind of put it on the back burner. But it's when you read these stories, like you mentioned, Quinton, or when you look into something like Lives Lived for Life, where you realize, how much this affects everyone, not just the people directly involved. So great point, Quinton, for sure.
Well, even some of the people, like I know a lot of people and a lot of family members who they're totally in support of MAiD, and but it's easy to say when it's not facing you. And in fact, I had one family member who was, rah, 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 MAiD and everything. And this person got a terminal illness and looked into, well, maybe should I do this? And then, no, I can't. I couldn't do it and just had a natural death. So, it's easier, it's just like any survey you get, hey, I can easily say yes or no to that, but when, the rubber hits the road, then we see what happens. So, but anyways, thanks for that, guys. Let's move on. So we've talked about how quickly MAiD has evolved, but Quinton, talk about a quick evolution. You did a story this week about the Catholic land movement, a sort of back to the land movement with people exploring a return to, dare we say, the family farm, which has declined so rapidly over the last few decades. The numbers escape me, but at this point last year, there were a few chapters of the Catholic land movement across the United States. 30, I believe it was, you say in your story, but none
You're
in
right about that.
Canada.
Yeah. Yeah, Mickey, there were 30 in the United States around the middle of 2025 last year, but now there are 80 in the United States and 4 in Canada. And, the first one in Canada was founded in, early February in Kitchener, and there's been 3 more that have emerged in the weeks since. And it seems that every time you go to the plot map that the Catholic Land Movement has on its websites, there are more and more chapters. So don't be surprised if we happen to be in the double digits for Canadian chapters, well before 2026 is over. Like, this is a movement that is resonating with people, a return to homesteading and wanting to be close to Christ by working the earth. And that, what a beautiful tribute to Creator God to be able to do that. So what's very unique about the Catholic land movement is they provide the expertise and the mentorship to allow you to make this transition. And the various chapters hold various skills sessions, focusing on one aspect of farming life so that you could become more efficient and skilled in that endeavor. So the one in Kitchener, I talked to Faisal Borges, a young man wanting to make this transition at 25 years old for the sake of his young family. And the people in his network have hosted a maple syrup, class. So that's, pretty cool. They did some seed starting this past week, and they are going to be just doing more and more educational sessions to help people that want to, transition from the jungle of city life to really more of that peaceful on the land experience. And in this crazy world, retreating and getting close to Jesus by working the earth, something that so many of the popes have endorsed throughout time as a very honorable way of living. It's just going to get more and more popular, I think, especially with kind of AI and a lot of other disruptions of modernity. So really exciting times ahead.
Well, there you hit kind of the nail on the head there, the honorable way of living. So, and let's face it, we've seen the numbers in Canada, the rapid rise in food insecurity, the rise in inflation, how Canadians' wages aren't keeping up. I guess that promise, that Canadian promise, is just not. They're kind of breaking that promise somewhere along the line. So, and people seem like they might be romanticizing the past, going back to the good old days. Maybe it's not such a bad idea. I'm sure we've all had recent connections to the farm. I know my father, he grew up on a farm in Ireland. My mother lived in rural Ireland as well. Her brother started a farm, and my cousin now continues to run that family farm. Uh, you guys, you guys must have some kind of farm connection, Luke.
Yeah, for sure, Mickey. I mean, it's not maybe not as glorious as a farm back in Ireland, but my father did also grow up on a little livestock farm just on the outskirts of Windsor, Ontario, out back. I don't know if anyone listening has connections to Windsor, but by the old airport that's not there anymore, way out from sort of the city center and the tunnel over to Detroit they lived. And not that I was around for any of it, but I always hear stories about, like you said, Mickey, I don't think my father is romanticizing this lovely life growing up on that little farm, that more rooted and self-sufficient life with family and faith and being in tune with nature. I think we all have sort of daydreams at the work desk of what a life like that might look like, and if that is as rewarding as it sounds. I think I've had those thoughts myself, and I find myself more and more asking my father about stories from the days at the farm, especially as Quinton mentioned, when maybe there's a little too much talk around the house of technology or AI or something, that we're just being bored to death with. I think more and more of us are looking to get outdoors, are looking to get more in touch with just some more core realities and just back to the root of things. Quinton, do you have anything similar in your family?
Out in Brooks,
Yeah,
Alberta,
my
you got to be surrounded by all
Yeah.
that farmland out there, aren't you?
well, of course, but if like many Albertans, we came from Saskatchewan originally. So the family farm was, near in, bigger Saskatchewan, and my grandparents, worked it for a year. Of course, I call them Mama and Papa, and they passed it down to their oldest son, Hector and Julie, and they did it for many years. So much livestock and so many crops. I mean, I visited when I was. Very, very little. I mean, we moved away from Bigger when I was 5 years old, so we're talking, 1997. So it's been quite a while ago. But I just loved, being there, and I mean, it was the type of farm where my mama would always invite the, kind of the stranger. Driving along the road or walking along the road to come in for dinner. There was just that hospitality in that community, that those neighborhoods where you didn't have to worry about leaving your door unlocked or leaving the the door to your truck unlocked. And I mean, maybe that's the whole thing. Like, people are wanting to get to these, communities surrounded by fellowship of people they could trust, because there's been a breakdown of institutional trust at a mass scale. So people are just wanting desperately to have that community. And what, and especially as a young family, like, what better environment to raise your kids? Like, I hope, down the road that maybe that could be in my future, or maybe that's something that relatives of mine that have kids, maybe they'll become increasingly, captivated by this possibility. Because what an environment that would be to raise young children. I think that, families would flourish. And I do find myself, kind of be like, yeah, it's maybe good that the Catholic land movement, for somebody like me who's more of that city, creature, and was really drawn by that, they'd maybe be able to provide the pathway. It's like, well, how do I really consider this vision of homesteading a little bit more seriously? The Catholic land movement, it's good that they've emerged to help people, put the pieces together. Like, here's how you can make it happen. So I think we're going to see some explosive growth over the next few years for CLM.
Well, I think you do see there are a lot of younger people doing it, and they may be just as they say, the gentleman farmer who buys a farm. Maybe they rent out their land to an actual full-time farmer, but they're also doing some stuff, raising a little herd of cattle or pigs themselves, growing. Corn, peppers, and any of those things. So yeah, people are making their way to it a little bit. So hey, all the best to all of them, and all the best to all of us, because possibly you guys. What do you think? The farm, Luke, you got the farm in your future?
Sounds pretty good to me. And I mean, you can always tell when you run into someone who is either in that line of work and life, or has been in the past, or has family. They're always, kind of tough, a little rough around the edges, but hard workers, Mickey, absolute hard workers, really salt of the earth people. Not to
Good to the core,
generalize all of them,
usually.
but yeah, exactly. So there's something very there's something nice about that. So I'll keep it on the daydreaming side of things for now, as we keep the articles coming. But who knows? Maybe down the road in the future, we'll be coming at the viewers live from Luke's farmstead somewhere.
Yeah, who knows? So, all right. How about the artists and you guys? Either of you artists other than wordsmiths?
Oh, you
Yeah,
played
maybe
the I
not.
played the old
Okay.
instrument back in the day, but not the paintings and not anything akin to the artists we're going to be talking about today.
Okay, yeah, because that's what we're going to do. We're going to turn to another topic altogether. We've been known to do that on Registered. Luke, you wrote this week about an arts movement that's come to Ontario, Theopolis. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that.
For sure, Mickey. Yes, Theopolis, very cool startup sort of project done by two graduates of where else but Our Lady Seat of Wisdom College.
Yes.
They met there in Barry's Bay. That's Eden O'Brien, and I believe was it Monica Seifert? Monica Seifert. These two girls met during their studies up in Barry's Bay. Had a real love for art, a real love for arts and culture, and of course, a real love for Catholic arts and culture. And they decided what better way to celebrate that than kind of be part of the revival of Catholic arts and culture, especially here in Ontario. So Theopolis is their project, and they're going to be doing their first sort of tangible event with this art exhibit titled Drama of the Soul, starting up on May 2nd, I believe, and running throughout May. Where they're going to be bringing together a handful of Catholic artists, one of whom we'll discuss here in a second. But they're going to be bringing these artists together, I think actually down in Moss Park in Toronto, for an art exhibit, various different media, painting, iconography, photography, sculpting, mixed media, all under this theme of the drama of the soul, exploring themes of existence, nature, problems of the human soul. I was able to speak with both co-founders the other week to sort of chat about their excitement. And I think excitement really is the word, Mickey. This is their first sort of public exhibition launch. They're super excited to have all these Catholic artists together. Of course, they're going to have projects throughout the year, whether that's sort of networking events to bring these artists together, support for the artists in whatever ways they may need. But this is one of the first times that they're bringing people together for this exhibit to show off, Catholic inspired art in whatever medium that may be. So they're really looking forward to it. And if anyone wants to know more, you can go to the article and get all the finer details about that.
Which of course you'll find at catholicregister.org. So, and that's amazing. Like as you say, the different art forms. We've got musicians, we've got painters, and of course we've got a sculptor in there. And who would that sculptor be? But Timothy Schmalz, who is the world-renowned Canadian sculptor. His work is in cities around the world, and look where else is it? It's at the Vatican. So and that's kind of the amazing thing to me. Like it's almost like a little startup company almost, and yet here's Timothy Schmalz, who he doesn't need this to push his name out there, but it's great of him that he's gotten involved in it, and I imagine that's going to lend a lot of credence to it. And he's helping out his fellow artists in his home province. So hey, great on Tim. And I know we've all had conversations with him, and we know how passionate he is about his work, and in turn about the church too. So we can only hope that these other artists share that same passion.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible that they were able to get him on board for sure. It's almost like if Catholic Athlete Group was able to get Tim Tebow for their first event launch or something like that, right? So he's a big name, of course. He'll be a big draw. On May 1st, they're actually going to be doing a pre-launch silent auction and sort of a private kickoff event. And going live that day is going to be a silent auction for his sculpture Life. And from what I gather, we all, of course, I hope most of us know the Timothy Schmalz Life Monument, the massive monument he's done under that theme Life. This piece that they're auctioning off, this sculpture, is one of the first sort of drafts of that monument. So it's a very special piece. He was generous enough to have it go up here for auction for Theopolis's launch event. So I think people are going to be really excited about that, and at the same time get to see maybe some Catholic art and culture that maybe they haven't heard of from another artist or a curator from across the province. So interesting to
All
see.
to say about Tim, like he is a guy that his passion, really translates into generosity. I mean, like this is kind of an example. Like he always, when people do reach out to him with, new opportunities, like he just does want to, be involved because he, really believes in the power of arts, to evangelize. And, so it is very cool that like he has been able to respond to the call at any point to the world. So many groups have sought out, his thing, along with really kind of being Pope Francis's favorite sculptor before his passing a year ago. And I know that Pope Leo the 14th is also a big fan of his work. I mean, like he is a guy that is so passionate. He could talk about art all day long, and there's been a couple of occasions where we have definitely gone in that avenue. Like he just is able to be just that font of knowledge, and you could just feel the passion in his voice and every single detail of the work that he creates. It just really exemplifies that passion. So really good for him to, get involved. I like seeing what he's up to. I sometimes like going to his Facebook page and seeing, the new creations that he has on the way. And I think Theopolis is benefiting greatly from what he's producing this time around.
Yeah, so we wish the best to Theopolis, and we can only imagine that Tim's going to be a great benefit for them. And of course, you got to put a shout out to Our Lady Seat of Wisdom College. They're pumping out all those great Catholic grads, and here's another thing that has come out of that little Catholic college that can in Barry's Bay, Ontario. So, and with that, we're going to bring this to an end with another shout out to, guess what? Our Lady Seat of Wisdom College, where Catholic higher education goes beyond the classroom. And we see that in Theopolis. So visit seatofwisdom.ca to learn more. So I thank you guys for joining me. I thank you, our listeners, for tuning in every week. So, and again, to keep abreast of all the Catholic news at home and around the world, make sure you see our website at catholicregister.org. And we hope to see you again next week. Thanks very much.